Alabasta is my favorite saga of all time. It's a saga that completely sold me on everything One Piece, so I'm very excited to talk about it. I love how different each island the Straw Hats went to were. Spherical mountains that resemble cacti because of hundreds of thousands of graves dotted along it. A forest claimed by dinosaurs where two giants fight. A winter wonderland with giant mountains resembling drums. And a desert ruined by a power-hungry warlord pirate. Each arc had something that hooked me. Reverse Mountain had the wonderful Reverse Mountain, and Laboon, this little whale left behind by his pirate crew for over 50 years, causing him to become so depressed and sad that he'd ram his head against a giant mountain in front of him in hope of breaking through to find his crew. At least until Luffy and the Straw Hats meet him, who managed to convince Laboon to stop hurting himself by promising they'll come back and have a rematch. Whiskey Peak set the stage for the entire saga by introducing us to the group known as Baroque Works, a criminal syndicate ran by this mysterious figure called Mr. Zero. Here we're introduced to Mr. 8, Miss Monday, Mr. 5, Miss Valentine, and lastly Mr. 13 and Miss All Sunday. Brilliant characters all in their own right, but with extra credits given to Miss Wednesday, Vivi, Mr. 8, Igaram, and Miss All Sunday. Three very important characters, not just in the saga, but in the entire story. Little Garden showed how islands are affected by the Grand Line, how some islands can be stuck in the past, full of dinosaurs like this one. It's also the island where two giants, Dory and Broggy, have been living on for over 100 years, constantly fighting to settle a feud started by one simple question: which one was bigger? A question in regard to who caught the biggest Sea King. And as for Mr. 3 and Miss Golden Week, they're absolutely fantastic in their own right. The wax fruit is gross, but so cool in how Mr. 3 uses it, alongside the color traps Golden Week uses. These two were such a riot. I loved seeing them work together, and just their interactions were so fun. This arc gave Usopp some much needed character development, giving him a reason to try and fight, to be more courageous and ambitious, but giving him role models to look up to. And this arc cemented Sanji as my favorite by being an absolute madman. He and Zoro go off to do their own hunting contest at the start. Eventually Zoro would meet back up with everyone and fight against Mr. 3 Golden Week, but Sanji doesn't. Instead, he finds Mr. 3's heart by pure accident. He enters and finds the phone ringing, decides to pick it up and answer it, and the caller turns out to be Mr. Zero. And Sanji somehow convinces him that Mr. 3 and Golden Week succeeded, and the Straw Hats are no longer a problem. And then on top of all of that, he managed to grab an eternal post to Alabasta, allowing the Straw Hats to get there easily with no worries about having to wait a year on Little Garden just so the log post would reset. This is a highlight of this entire saga for me. It's pure gold. Next up is Drum Island, and unlike the previous arcs where I didn't have much to say, it's this arc and the next one where I really have stuff to talk about. Two scenes that really helped my opinion of Luffy change was when, instead of immediately going to attack the islanders, threatening to shoot him for being a pirate, Vivi gets him to cut the crap, to bow down, apologize, and show restraint, showing that not everything needs to be a fight. Then we see Luffy carrying Nami and Sanji all the way up this giant drum tower while climbing it with only his hands and feet. It made me happy seeing these scenes because Luffy was finally starting to step up and put work into being a captain, rather than just being annoying and obnoxious. After all that, the crew finally gets a doctor, Chopper, who I actually was worried about because of how he resembled your typical mascot character. I was worried he was going to be annoying, but no, Chopper is fantastic. I love him so much. I love how unique his devil fruit power is, how he can change into multiple different forms, and I love how he uses his own medical knowledge to give himself the ability to transform into even more additional forms. Wapol, the king of Drum Island, is a spoiled, corrupt, cowardly, and disloyal king. Drum Island was well known for its advanced medical knowledge and highly skilled doctors, and to help tighten his grip on the kingdom, he sent out an army to force the doctors to live in his castle, and any doctor that refused to, at best they'll get exiled, and at worst killed. Anyone that needed medical attention had to go through Wapol, make a case for themselves before they could even be seen by a doctor. Drum Island as a whole became sick, a country that needed healing and medicine. In fact, I'd go so far to say that what Drum Island really needed is a doctor. Heroic is my favorite character in this entire arc. His backstory is phenomenal. How he suffered through a fatal illness, traveling the world to find a cure, to end up empty-handed. So he wanders and finds a beautiful view of cherry blossoms. That view cures him and changes him. He gives up being a thief and becomes a doctor to help people. He genuinely believes that no illness can be incurable and fights with the pride of a pirate. He is a doctor that, while may not be the best doctor in terms of medicine, usually ending up causing more problems than solving, will give everyone the time of day no matter what. He doesn't care about riches or rewards. All he cares about is helping people. Whether you're a sick kid or a strange raccoon thing, he never asked for anything in return, and most of the time, he'd be looked down upon for causing problems and using crazy things for medicine such as lizard eyes. To some, his craziest idea was secure a kingdom, and despite being an outcast chased out by the people he tries to help, he still wants the best for them, even when he's about to be killed by the same people who he wants to save. The scene where Hiruluk dies is my favorite scene in the entirety of One Piece. It's just so moving that even in the face of death, he isn't sad, angry, feeling betrayed and hurt, but happy, so joyful that even though he will not live to see the kingdom cured, he dies with no regrets, no doubts, no fear. And the way he talks about dying has always been something I've believed personally. One day you'll die, but you'll never truly die until you're forgotten. When I die, I want to die like Hiruluk. I want to have lived a wonderful life. A life with no doubts, no regrets, no fear, no shame. And so far, I've been doing quite well in that regard. I mean, hell, it's one reason I started this channel, because even if this channel never becomes anything, I want to have tried and seen it myself, than to not and miss out on something amazing. Now, onto the Alabasta arc itself. Let's start off easy. Starting with the Straw Hats, I'll quickly go over them as I don't have too much to say. Once again, Sanji being awesome by using his past experience in Little Garden with Mr. Zero to help again, saving Luffy, Nami, Zoro, Usopp and Smoker, who are trapped in a sea stone cage while in a room that is flooding. I adore the stealth aspect of his character. I feel like it's underrated, underappreciated, and especially now that we don't see it that often. Zoro had a great scene fighting Mr. One. It was a great pairing with how his devil fruit lets him turn any part of his body into steel blades. And seeing how they were equally matched in terms of attacks, yet he still struggled against him as he was unable to cut him until the very end, even despite being covered in wounds and blood, Zoro never backed down. It was such a good fight. Nami's fight scene with Miss Doublefinger was fantastic. She literally steps on the spikes of Doublefinger, ignoring all the pain just for Vivi. Seeing her use the climb attack, failing to get it to work time and time again until eventually figuring it out and electrocuting Doublefinger in the most badass way I've seen. Absolutely incredible. And Usopp? His fight scene with Mr. Four and Miss Merry Christmas? I'll be honest, I fell for his hammer trick. I believed everything he was saying, proving again I'm really gullible. Now for someone who was in my top 3 favorite characters, Mr. 2, Bon Clay. I absolutely adore him from the second we meet him. The interactions he had on the Going Merry with the Straw Hats, how he enjoyed their time together and really loved hanging out with them was fantastic. And his devil fruit is so cool, how he can imitate people after just touching them briefly. I love the scene where he showed that power off, it was so much fun. I love the fight scene between him and Sanji, how they are both on equal footing, a perfect match for each other, and that even though they're enemies, they still respect each other. And when Bon Clay was defeated, he asked Sanji to kill him and Sanji denied him, instead offering a hand in friendship and a good fight. And even more importantly, I love the final part of Alabasta where he hit the Going Merry and he told Luffy that he did it because the Marines were after it, and because he considers Luffy a friend. Then, on top of that, Bon Clay and his pirate crew impersonated the entire Straw Hats, so the Marines would go after them instead of the actual Straw Hats, giving them a chance to run free. This redemption arc is my favorite part of Alabasta. It's just incredible that I became so invested in a character I just met, to the point I wanted him, still want him to join the Straw Hats. It was great seeing how even villains can become friends with Luffy. I love Vivi, and I know I don't have much to say about her, but it's just her entire character, her personality, her determination, her independence, everything about her is just fantastic. The one scene that stood out to me was the scene of her yelling at everyone fighting, telling them all to stop over and over. It's just so powerful, moving, and heartbreaking. She is the character I still wish was a Straw Hat. She fit the crew so well. She was a little bit of every character while still being herself. Now let's talk about Mr. Zero, or as it's been revealed, Crocodile. Crocodile is one of the 7 warlords and is one of my favorite villains. He came to this country, he started up Baroque works, all to conquer Alabasta and find the Asian weapon Pluton. Seeing how he took over, destroyed the entire country, all while working for the government was fascinating. I love that he's a smart, intelligent villain with a plan and a goal, and that he was dedicated to the very end as he spent years doing all of this. And he was so close to achieving it too. He was seen as a savior by the people of Alabasta, the government saw him as an ally, or as much as a pirate can be, and even Cobra, the king of Alabasta, trusted and respected him. He even had the best devil fruit for that region, the Sand fruit. He used that fruit to cause insane amount of drought in Alabasta, which led to an uproar as the kingdom was slowly dying from drought. And best of all, it was pinned on the king. He even nearly killed Luffy. The only reason why he didn't was because Miss All Sunday saved him. Crocodile had everything set up perfectly, and this is why I love him so much. Everything was stacked in his favor, so it made the fight between the Straw Hats and him so much more powerful, and especially when they won. I love the battle between Crocodile and Luffy, seeing how Crocodile nearly killed Luffy in this first fight, showing how powerful he was, and how nothing Luffy did would hit him, except until the very end, when after being stabbed by Crocodile, Luffy's water barrel broke, and Luffy grabbed Crocodile's arm, hurting him. After this, we get to see Luffy using water to beat him, but in the final fight, he's out of water, everything is crumbling, he has nothing left, except blood. Seeing Luffy beat Crocodile up using his blood to wet him was incredible. I didn't see it coming, and it blew me away. It was such a fantastic scene, and this is one of my favorite fights easily. And after everything calmed down, we get one of my favorite scenes. The scene where Vivi is at the shore, seeing the Straw Hats off, yelling, asking if they'll still be their friend. And before they could respond, Luffy about to yell out to her, realizing that if they did, she would be seen as an ally, and the Marines would go after her. So they all raise their arms, showing the X that they put on their arms from earlier. It's such a beautiful scene that has stayed in my mind ever since I finished Alabasta. This arc has been phenomenal in every aspect. The characters, the writing, the locations. This was a perfect taste of the Grand Line, the way the world works, and more importantly, the future of the Straw Hats, seeing what lies in store for them. So many characters were introduced and they were all handled wonderfully, and I ended up with a lot of favorite characters that I still love to this very day. As for Miss All Sunday, I found it very sweet that Luffy saved her at the end, even though she was a villain, and he even let her join his crew. I'll be honest, I have a lot more to say about her, but more so her actual self, Nico Robin. She is my second favorite character in all of One Piece, and I am very excited to talk about her in the future arcs. I honestly might end up talking about her more than Sanji, so forgive my lack of love for her here. While I could go on about every aspect of her character here, I won't, mainly because it was only when she joined the crew that I developed an interest in her. When I finished watching Alabasta, my opinion was that it was the best saga in One Piece. And after catching up, do I still agree with this? Absolutely. It's my favorite saga, what I consider the best story in One Piece. I'm very excited to see how the live action tackles this, and you'll definitely get a video about it. By the way, I am thinking of consolidating some future sagas into one video. It just depends on how much I can say about them. For example, Skypiea, Thriller Bark, Fishman Island, so on and so forth. So depending on what happens when I start writing Skypiea, I might put Long Ring Long Land with it. I refuse to rely on padding out videos with recapping scenes, and I don't want to do that with any of my videos. Once again, thank you all for watching.